Hello everyone, Korvoth here once more. I'm still working on the basic systems for the first official rules of the Foundry game. Slight adjustments and such, but hopefully I'll be all done with that by next week. So today I got another tale of my adventures within Foundry. So shut your eyes, slip into another life, and feel the energy burst through your circuits. For this is Toil. Fuck! Korvoth threw the charger across the room, watching it crack apart and fall to the floor. Wait, he saw something in the way it had fallen, the pieces realigning themselves. He rushed over to it, moving around his gathered scrap and wires strewn around the room, his metal body huddling around his failed invention as he tried to gain a little bit of knowledge from what he had failed to make. Korvoth, tilting his face, staring at the broken and fried motors of his previous attempt at making a recharger. Furious lightning and monstrous, city-shaking thunder erupted all around him. Korvoth had to hurry to find a fresh rip in his roof, eventually just putting his last bucket beneath the tear in the metal, and then he went back to his invention. It had ripped apart on impact with the wall, his misguided fury actually showing him parts of the alternator and the controlling circuitry within it that he hadn't been aware of. There were even simple instructions on the cracked green plastic card. So very interesting. The storm continued to rage and howl all around him. A very dangerous thing for a simple bot like himself and most of the others around this foundry. He was stuck in his one-room hovel until the flooding rain abated, but who knew how long that would take? In the meantime, he needed to invent a recharger. He was very low on batteries, the last full one in his chest already. And if the storm didn't let up, Korvoth would be stuck here till his wires starved of the precious energy required to keep him functioning. He checked the make of the circuit. I think I have one of these. Korvoth gathered another set of objects he'd need. Having been through the process a few times, he had a much better idea how much of each item he required to get the job done. There was much less waste this time than the last one. The storm continuing to batter his wobbly little shack, and the scrap wastes all around him, while Korvoth huddled over the dim workbench. After a couple of hours of diligent work, he was ready to test his hand at charging another spent battery. He cleared off his desk by sweeping the waste off of it with one arm, hurrying excitedly to fetch a used battery from his storage bins. Setting it in place, he flipped the switch and waited while the freaking motor began to shake and hum upon his bench. It was working quite well until it shook a little too much, twisting and flinging itself all of a sudden over his desk and onto the floor. "No! Stop it! Don't no! Oh, come on!" Korvoth shouted, and the motor began screeching and smoking around his feet. He hadn't even imagined that this might happen. What the hell was wrong with him? He got the situation under control, extinguishing the burgeoning fire and sitting back in his chair, trying not to focus on how much of a failure he knew he was. "This chugs, Korvoth said as another distant ripple of thunder echoed over the landscape. He sighed, sorting through the debris while burying his desire to feel sorry for himself. It wouldn't help with the task at hand. Another shorted wire was the root of this problem. Korvoth sorted through his remaining gear, getting everything set up and separated before he began to work. The first task was building a metal box connected to one of his major supports. And after he gave it a little comment. "Try to shake yourself to death now, you son of a bitch." Korvoth squinted at the pile of junk that he hoped would save his life. If it didn't work and the storm didn't pass in the next couple of hours, you'd have to experience another horrible fading death. Not a pleasant process at all, as you could slowly feel helplessness crawl across and through your limbs and into your mind, wiping you out of existence. You only got so many attempts to make a go of life in Foundry each night, and Korvoth desperately loved being here. The freedom and adventure of surviving, of exploring, of finding and making, and being as much of himself as he could ever be. So much different from the life he led in the other place. By his wits and talents, if he didn't make it right now, he'd be yanked from it once more. He had to be a success this time. He calmed himself and went through all of the steps he'd already been through so many times before. Now, with practiced experience and a sudden jolt of inspiration, Korvoth snagged a device he'd collected just this morning, a dial knob, and with it, and a circuit board, he set up a power regulator. That way, as the motor dialed in and revved up, he'd be able to throttle it back and keep the flow of energy at a slow, even pace. Brilliant! Korvoth exclaimed as he examined his handiwork. This final time, he set the invention in the box to keep it in place, bolting it down to keep it from wandering off like the last little fellow. Setting up the regulator, Korvoth started up the motor without a battery in it for this experiment. He really could not afford to lose another one, so he had to be as careful as possible. It works! Korvoth shouted and danced with joy. Okay, alright. I need to test the real thing now. Enough celebration. It's not good enough till it doesn't short with the battery sitting in the charge point. Korvoth rushed to see if he would live or die, all his hopes and dreams resting on this moment of incredible success or intense and horrendous failure. As he set the battery in place, he worried that he hadn't set up a way to tell when it was fully charged or not. He'd heard from a few bots at the depot that the batteries couldn't even be recharged at all. But Lothran had told him outside of the ground dreams that they were wrong. So he'd do everything in his power to prove each of them how great the name of Korvoth really was. Easing his tense nerves as much as he could, Korvoth flipped the switch and clutched the regulator with all the hungry need he felt for more Foundry in his life, behind each of the flexing servos and his fingers responding to his tiny little whims. He had to keep dialing the motor back, pulling it from its incredible, efficient, and effective energy ceiling, to keep the wires from shorting out and dooming Korvoth to a terrible fate. After a couple of hours of intense concentration, Korvoth plucked the battery out of the device after turning it off and letting it cease to spin. Feeling more than a little trepidation, he flicked open his chest cavity, prepping both batteries for the transfer. And then he did it, swapping one near-wrecked energy supply for another. He glanced down, barely able to believe his eyes. It's half full! I did it! Korvoth shot to his feet out of the chair, screaming like a madman while the storm continued to deluge the land all around him. I've made the impossible possible! I am amazing! Fuck yeah! I am the greatest there has ever been! Take that, you ignorant naysayers! I am a successful inventor! Me! Korvoth! Ow! 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 Feels so good! Feels so good! Yeah! Woo! Korvoth sat back down. Okay. Alright, now I gotta come up with a display meter to know when the battery is fully charged and hook that up without overloading the system. If I hook it in after the regular... And so it is. Our time together has come to its end. And this was Toil, another glimpse into the Foundry, one of my trips there and back. If you're wondering I did live so much longer that day, but now it's time for us to part our ways. I've been your host, Korvoth, and a pleasant hello and a fond farewell to each and all. Please leave your comments, questions, and kindnesses down below. None of that terrible, rude, or mean stuff, though. You keep that to yourself. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to help us learn, spread, and grow. And don't forget, we strongly encourage each and every one of you to do your absolute utmost to stay safe out there. Good night and good luck. Bye-bye, everybody. See you again tomorrow for the first story in the Fleet series. Oh, it's gonna be good. You have no idea. It's so good. Oh, yeah, I'll see you then. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye.